What's up, my friends, and welcome into today's episode of Forte Catholic. I'm so excited that you are here. Speaking of being here, this is the second episode that we recorded with Father Anthony sitting right here with me in the studio. He spent the week with me. We went on retreat together. We kind of talk about that. But this episode is a blast from the past because we recorded this before we left for the retreat. It's crazy how time works, right? But it's not just me and Father Anthony. We wanted some company for this episode. John Bearded Blevins joins us, and we have a grand old time. It's pretty rare for more than me and one co-host to be together. This is one of those special, rare occasions. So we hope that you guys enjoy it. If you do, please hit that subscribe button, whichever podcast app you're listening in. If you're watching on YouTube, also hit subscribe there as well. You guys are awesome. Enjoy the episode. What's up? Welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Jon. There's a priest sitting next to me. Father Anthony is still here. Peek behind the curtain a little bit. Last week's show was recorded 3 hours ago.
No. I've been here in your studio for a week wearing the same shirt.
Nothing has changed other than the fact that you met Allison.
I did meet Allison.
So the only person not involved in today's show is Liv.
Yeah.
Because John's here. Hey, John.
Hey, what's up? Father Anthony just living off the land, huh? In your room there.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking about this today because Allison has met... Allison's the last person to meet Father Anthony. So I was thinking about all the connections between the five humans that host this show.
Yeah.
Right? So John, no, you haven't met everybody. I've met everybody.
Yeah.
John, I think you're missing the ladies, correct?
Why do I feel like I met Liv?
Did you?
We've talked on the phone like 4 times in the last few months. Why do I feel like I met her?
That's weird. She hadn't talked to anybody else.
You know what? I don't think I have met her, but since she's so friendly and kind, I feel like I have.
No.
But not Allison, huh? Not friendly.
No,
and kind.
Alice and I have only hung out that one time. Remember that episode thing we did with Game of Favorites, I think.
Yeah, so the five of us have been together twice digitally.
Yeah.
So we did an episode of this show all together. We played Game of Favorites together, and then spoiler alert, episode 300's in like a month, so we'll all be together again for that one. But in person, I think the last holdouts are just John and the two girls.
I think so too.
I've met everybody. You've met everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The ladies have met each other, obviously. So I think it's just John and the ladies that's left.
Name of your new podcast, John and the Ladies.
John and the Ladies.
John is producing a new podcast just about every week. One new one pops up. So there you go, buddy.
Oh. Thanks.
You're welcome. I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or not.
Me neither.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's most of our relationship, John, is me saying things. You just go, thanks, and take them kindly.
And then people just assume the best, and so they fill the gap with trust and think that you're a nice human.
Well, most people don't. You do, because you are a very trusting and caring person. Anthony saw me host trivia last night, and you had one thing to say about my experience.
You immediately started being mean to everybody.
Wow.
It was actually funny, just joshing with everybody. But yeah, it was funny. He was making fun of all the people playing trivia.
So
it was like the show. Except in real life.
Yeah, it's how I make friends. Is I make fun of people.
It works. They loved it.
Don't walk away. Yeah, people like me make fun of. Like, I don't know what to say.
The people you were meanest to had a whole conversation with us afterwards. So it's I don't know. It's weird. It works.
Yeah. So we were joking because there were 7 teams, 4 of which were returning teams, and 3 of them were new. So people return for this.
Yeah.
People keep coming back to the show. Y'all keep coming
on purpose.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Exactly. So, John, there's been this video that's been circulating the internet that I don't think you've seen on purpose.
Elmo's COVID vaccine.
What?
Not that?
No, what is that?
Okay, no, I don't know. They vaccinated a Muppet. So what is it?
Did they really?
Yeah.
Elmo got the COVID vaccine.
Did he really?
Yeah. Then he fell over dead right away. It's a big controversy.
He turned green, actually.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
He became.
So what video are you talking about?
Yeah.
All I want to talk about is this now. I have so many questions. Did that really happen?
It's like a way of showing kids that it's okay to get the vaccine now.
Yeah. He didn't die. He just took the vaccine.
I get that.
He also
But-
did not turn green.
Yeah.
He's a Muppet.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was there liquid in the syringe?
All I saw was the article. I didn't. I dare not click. Those
Do
things.
Muppets, like, they wouldn't get like COVID, but they might get like rabies. Like, do they get the same diseases
No,
people get?
they're puppets.
Yeah.
So what? The worst thing you can do to a puppet is get it wet. I mean, I guess you could rip its head off.
Okay, but in Muppet, like,
You
let's
could burn
enter
it.
the Muppet metaverse. Are they animals? I bet Elmo gets a rabies vaccine.
So you know how they always say like, "Oh yeah, none of our products were tested on animals."
Yeah.
But then there was the Muppets.
Yep.
All of our products were tested on Muppets.
Anyway, you want to move on?
Yeah.
Probably. Ground to a halt.
I could stay here all day, but I think we should move on.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about liturgical abuse.
Oh, my
That's what-
favorite kind
That's
of
what we were
abuse.
setting up. So, but
It's like a very terrible top 10 list there, John.
Yep.
y'all are good people separate.
You can't ask for more real me and then hate more real me in the first 5 minutes.
Exactly. So, there's this video that I guess is technically liturgical abuse, but the amount of money I would have paid to know this was coming and to be in attendance for this mass is all of my discretionary income.
Mm-hmm.
I would have spent I still want to feed my kids and keep the house and stuff, but all of my discretionary income I would have spent just to be there for this moment. So this priest is doing the general intentions, or whatever.
Yeah, the intercessions.
the intercessory prayers, and it is the most hilarious and passive aggressive thing ever. So
is.
we're gonna put you, Father Anthony, into the position of bad priest.
Yeah.
It's not a huge leap.
So, wait, let me get there. I'm there. Okay.
Okay, so you're going to share some of the intentions that this good priest. I have heard these. I have laughed a lot. Father Anthony has heard these and laughed a lot. And these are new for John. So everybody watch John's face as our okay priest tries to be a bad priest.
Okay. It's Laetare Sunday, so we're wearing pink, and these are all chanted intercessions. So I'm going to chant them, okay? And it starts simple. It gets exciting. Okay. From the blind sense of entitlement some people seem to have, Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
For the times our sharp political ties have blinded us to the responsibility to care for each other, Christ have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
From the blind attitude over theft of work Xerox paper for personal use, Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
When we attempt to jump the line or skirt the rules to get a vaccine, Christ have mercy.
Saint Elmo.
From the temptation to cheat at golf tournaments by not reporting strokes or a foot wedge, Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
From a blind attitude during COVID of not wearing masks or hoarding toilet paper, Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
From the times we have lacked respect for God and church by distracted talking, Lord have mercy.
Oh my gosh.
Lord have mercy.
When we are tempted to engage in gossip or incessant griping, Christ have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
When we are blind to racism in all its colors, Lord have mercy.
all its colors.
Huh.
For the times we blame the church as an excuse not to participate, Lord have mercy.
That's my real confession.
I will do one more. When we become annoyed that someone is sitting in my pew or that the homily is too long, Christ have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
And it goes on. That's just a sampling.
Amen. Man. So, John, I have many thoughts, but this is your first time hearing this thing that you've tried to avoid. You're welcome.
Am I supposed to pretend that's my first time?
Oh,
Have you heard it?
No, you told me.
No,
that you
yeah, no,
avoided it.
I didn't post it. I saw it, commented on it, and my comment was that I am shocked that it's such an empty church.
Oh, good.
Except I'm not.
Here's some of my thoughts on it. First, thoughts before the video. Thoughts on what just happened with Father Anthony.
Yeah.
I'm a trained singer.
Yeah.
And when you were going up
Yeah.
a tone every time.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way you keep going soon.
Correct.
And then you were like,
bump back down.
From the
Yeah, I went back down. Yeah,
it was very funny. I was thinking in my range, was like, I can keep going as long as you want to go, but at some point you're not going to be able to do
correct.
this. My other thoughts on this. So on Twitter, I know this very well. You can only post 2 minutes and 20-second videos. I know because this show is so great that I try to share so much of it. Like John is saying some great things, Father Anthony's saying great things, and the mean people over at Twitter don't let me post more than 2 minutes and 20 seconds of y'all's great content.
Mm-hmm.
This video does not start at the beginning of the intercessions.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody heard this and then pulled out their phone. It does not stop at the end of the 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It continues. We don't know. The rumor says that this is still going on to this day. We're not quite sure. My favorite responses or my favorite thoughts were, one, this is never ending. This is what the eternal chant of heaven sounds like. Mm-hmm. Secondly, like no one in that church was fazed. Everyone was saying, Lord have mercy, like as loud as they could. Yeah. Meaning, this is not new. No. It's not like the priest was in a bad mood this day. This is their normal Sunday. It makes me so happy.
Well, hold on. So what Sunday did you say that was, Padre?
Laetare Sunday. So when you wear pink during Lent. Yep. So just
during Lent. And so that's going to be, that's in, there any chance that could have been in January? No, not this year.
No, middle of Lent was like March-ish.
Because I tried to, when I saw it, of course, I rolled my eyes and it just says, this is why as a church we can't have nice things. But I thought to myself, maybe it's a once a year thing, like a New Year's Seinfeld airing of grievances, where once a year they do this. Not often or monthly or even twice a year, but you think this happens more than just that one time?
I think that because I watched it the first time and just died laughing and watched the priest the whole time. The second time, I watched the congregation and listened, and they were responding just like if Father said, for Pope Francis and all of his intentions and the bishops across the world, Lord have mercy. Oh. Like it was so normal. Yeah. It was so normal. But he's over here saying like, at Thanksgiving that Elmo got a vaccine.
That might be this weekend.
So I'm gonna give a different perspective here because at first when I first saw it, I'm like, this has to be a bit. And I realized it wasn't a bit. This is totally genuine. And you know what? I think it's great.
You do not.
Yes, I do. Absolutely. First of all, this priest.
He's joking. I'm serious. No. I love this so much.
I think it's very good. So he's teaching, and it's a parish that they respect tradition. They're chanting, and he's not a perfect chanter, but he's doing a good job, right? And he's bringing the intentions and the things that we should be sorry about, really down to earth, making them really concrete, Because a lot of times they're general, we ignore them, but who hasn't stolen Xerox copy paper from their office for personal use?
That Xerox copy paper. I did not purchase.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I had to bring those sins to the Lord in the body of Christ, in the congregation. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful way to really concretize our sins instead of abstractly just washing them away. No, let's really bring the stuff that we really do badly to the Lord now. I cried.
This is the most mad you've ever made me.
I know. I kept glancing back and forth between you and John, and I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened.
This is not the great chatting.
Why isn't it? I think this is the reform of the reform. So you got the chant, you got this real down to earth, real intercessions. And, praise God for that. I think he's really been thinking and praying about all these intercessions. And it's definitely not directed to one or two people in the congregation. It's definitely not him just working out his problems for that week. I think it's a real, genuine attempt to convert souls. And I respect, as a fellow priest, I respect that.
There is certainly no way that it was just 6 wealthy 70-year-old women and 6 wealthy 75-year-old men. Certainly not just their parish council making these grievances.
No. Okay. If it was, it was out of deep prayer. Deep prayer.
My favorite one, as myself being a degenerate Catholic gambler.
Yeah.
My favorite one was the one about golfing and cheating on strokes.
Yeah.
This priest went to a charity golf tournament.
Absolutely, he did.
And one of the people in that room beat him by 2 strokes.
Exactly.
And he could not prove that they were cheating, but he was sure as heck going to let them know that he knew. It's one of those things. Sometimes you can't get full justice for things, but you can control the thing and just let the other person know that you know.
Mhm.
And it's just a powerful thing. And I respect it.
You know, I never thought about using the sacred liturgy as my own personal weapon to hurt other people. Like, I never thought about that. But you know what? This priest has opened my mind to new possibilities.
Open my heart, Lord.
Oh, gosh. Perhaps a new Roman missal, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good job.
That's a weapon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Missile. Very good. Very good. John, any
Yeah.
other thoughts on this video in particular?
In all seriousness, this is what is wrong with the church right now, and it's a huge joke. That's all my thoughts. That's it. That's all I have. Look
It is
around
a
that
huge
church.
joke.
Nobody's under 30. Like, you get these boomers that think that this is how the church needs to be and we can do fun things. I'm all for being creative. You want to do a fundraiser? Do a fundraiser where the highest bidder can ban a song played at Mass the rest of the year. Fine. No, you don't address that at Mass, though.
You
So I
know what
just
I'm gonna
think
do?
it's wild. What?
When I finally get money, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to ban one of the mass parts just to prove a point.
Can't ban a
do
Mass
the
part.
song
You can ban
deuce
a song.
anymore.
We can't do the holy, holy, holy.
No, you know what I mean.
No Lamb of God.
You're banning the song "All Are Welcome." Fine.
Yes.
No Gloria.
So there's I'm saying there's room for fun. There's room for what literally happened there, because honestly, I think it's a joke. I do not believe that they were serious. I believe that is like something they do as a joke. They let the parishioners write them in and it becomes a meme every month or every year. I really do think that's what I'm hoping is the case.
You have to think that. It's 100% real, John. I'm sorry to tell you.
If not, let's just assume it was, let's assume it was like a funny thing. Then just do it at your church picnic and it would be hilarious. And you can use it to raise money.
It'd be good. Yeah, it'd be good like skit.
Yeah.
Parish fundraiser.
But to do it like seriously, I refuse to accept that it's real.
It's 100% real. I like John's idea a lot, though. Like, where you can just be like, I want to pay, like, let's all get to the church picnic and let's let that be the time. Like, usually at church picnic, the gossip is behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But could you imagine letting people pay for petitions?
An actual airing of grievances.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Through chance.
Right.
It's actually brilliant.
Dear God, we ask that you make Susan just a little bit more patient in church. Like,
Help Father respond to his emails more promptly. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I think we've solved all the church's problems. Anthony's been joking about it. John's clearly upset.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely enjoyed this. It was so funny. Like, do I want this to be my church that I go to every Sunday? Not at all. But do I want this to exist so that I can find where it is so I can go visit it once? 100%. 100%. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen in a Catholic church. And like, it's one of those things where it's like I've seen real liturgical abuse, right? Like I think I've shared on this show before that we had a priest dressed in all rainbow cassock and albs and everything. And it was during the Easter season. So, you know, they go around and they do like the sprinkling rite or whatever. One day we went, it was daily mass at his parish. One day he used a super soaker and and was, you know, shooting us with holy water. And then the second day he used, like that stuff, the like weed killer, the stuff that you put weed killer in.
Oh
you
my
kinda, like,
gosh.
pump it up or whatever. So like, I was like, are we the weeds? Like I was really confused, you know?
That's
And like there's stuff like that. But then like there's stuff like this that's like actually part of the mass. And you know, they were real intentions. Just strange. I loved it. John's so mad.
It was probably in my archdiocese. What?
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of which, John, I want to give you the floor because we've riled you up now. But you have been what's the opposite of proponent?
You have been a whistleblower, I think.
A
A liturgical whistleblower on Twitter.
Oh gosh.
Whistleblower, and you've been a foe of liturgical abuse for a while on your Twitter, right? And it's one thing to do it on Twitter, right? But I just saw an article that you were a part of. I haven't read it yet because I just saw it today. But you were a part of this article. So explain. We talked last week about how Anthony and I were mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, but I think you were mentioned in a paper too or something, right? So what was your article about?
So yeah, it was a guy named Jonathan reached out from the Catholic News Register, which is CNR, not NCR, just to clarify. because I always get the two confused, even though one is much better than the other. And the Catholic News Register does a really good job. And basically, he saw my original tweet of this parish about 10 minutes from me, Holy Family in Inverness, where the pastor gets up and blesses the congregation at the end of Mass with a guitar. Now, here's the thing. You have to understand.
Is it Jack Black?
I know, right? A year before that, or maybe even like a year and a half before that, right when my daughter was born, we had one of those weird like moments where we just didn't go to Mass in the morning because it was her nap time. And it's like all of a sudden close to 5 p.m. and she's kind of crying again. I'm like, what if we find another church near us that has like a 6 or 7 p.m.? We'll just go to that one. And so that one we went to at 6 p.m. We had no idea. As soon as we pulled in on the front of the church, it said, that had a big sign that says, our Mass never ends. And as soon as we pulled in, I was like, oh no, Jody, like, that's not true. The Mass ends every time. Like, what is this? And I was like,
no, the Mass still has not ended. The priest from our previous story is still chanting those chants.
Yeah, it's still going on.
That particular Mass is still going. In general, there is an end to Mass, yes.
Yeah. And so as soon as we pulled in, I was scared. And I won't go into the whole thing there, but I will just say that it's the most horrified I've ever been. And I am not someone who is super easily offended. I think lately I am. I'm way more sensitive to I just want the priest to say the black and do the red. I think that the people have a right to that. And you know what? Part of it probably is that I grew up in a parish that did a lot of things very incorrectly and wildly wrong that I didn't really understand until later I studied theology and fell in love with Jesus in my own kind of way. And so I'm sensitive because my parents didn't know. They just thought they were part of a cool parish. Like, you know, their whole life. This parish is cool. The priest is really nice and inclusive. He'll never talk about confession ever. And that's just how it was. And I didn't know that. So
all
now
are
it just
included in hell.
Yeah. Now it just kind of bugs me in the wrong way. So I went there. I wrote a lengthy but charitable Twitter thread like 2 years ago about all the things I saw. And I didn't even receive communion, which is, again, rare for me. Like I know the Eucharistic prayers, just say it and we're fine. And he had a woman stand up there and say the Eucharistic prayer with him. I mean, I was like, I am not going to receive communion. So my wife and I just kind of left after Mass. And so then a year later, I see the guitar blessing and I was like, this is insane. They're still at it. Like I would have figured something would have been done. And so I share it and it kind of blows up and whatever. And I refused an interview with this guy, Jonathan, who's a good reporter. And then my friend sent me another one a couple of weeks ago. And it's a video of a lay guy just doing the bubbles in the middle of the homily. He's giving the homily. And then at the end, they're like literally singing and dancing to like a 1980s disco song. Yeah. And they're just dancing on the altar. I mean, right. I mean, it is insane. And so I tweeted another video because nothing happened the first time. The parish did take down all their YouTube and Facebook videos after the guitar blessing video. And then I tweeted another one. And all I said was like, dear Cardinal Supich, please make it stop. Which like you could take that as kind of like short and edgy, but also it's just very simple. Please stop, make this stop. It's happening. And so then the guy reaches back out and says, hey, now you want to do an interview? And I was like, yes.
My anger has grown to the point where I'm not making good decisions.
So it was, and he did a really good job. He asked really good questions. He talked about how, Cardinal Supich is interpreting, what Pope Francis wrote in a document I'm not going to pronounce correctly, Traditiones Custores. And really,
God bless you.
Thank you. Cardinal Supich really he doesn't allow, the Adorantem anymore. Which is not even part of what Pope Francis wrote. He's banned most of the Latin Mass. There's all kinds of things I won't go into now. But why not then stop, parades happening in the middle of Mass? And so they didn't respond to any letters that I wrote. And so I did the interview and it was just released. And it's gotten a lot of good feedback so far. And I tried to be as loving and as charitable as possible. But my main concern is for the people who have grown up in that church who don't know any better, and they don't know what they're missing, and they don't know how powerful and even emotional that a sacred liturgy can be when done right and done well. And that's all. Those are my thoughts. And so I do think that it's doing a huge disservice to our church, not just in America and parts of Europe as well. And it saddens me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen John angry at anything except liturgical abuse. And every time it comes up, it makes me so happy because I love seeing my bad qualities in other people. It makes me feel so good about myself. So watching John's anger rise just makes me feel really good.
I'm hoping this is a righteous anger.
I hope mine is too.
No, I mean, it's totally fair because justice isn't being done. Like, you're right. People deserve a reverence and orthodox liturgy. And they don't have the power to change that, really. And so it's really an abuse on several different levels. Like you said, they're being deprived of what the liturgy actually is. And so to be angry about that is good. And to be honest, I was reading that article, and when I found out that you didn't want to do their first interview, that you were writing letters and doing everything like I would tell somebody to do when they were upset about something in the church. Like you did all those things, and when none of those things worked, then you gave a very respectful interview. So I was actually very proud of you, John. I thought you handled it perfectly. Whether anything else gets done, you were able to stay, keep your own integrity and do what you could for the church, and that's great.
This is a funny story. So I got a priest who was just, I won't even say that because he anonymously did the interview as well. He's a priest of the Archdiocese of Chicago. Yeah. And he sent me a text and he goes, I just want you to know, this is going to be the talk of our entire convocation of priests this week, which is happening apparently this week in Chicago. Awesome. He's like, I'll let you know how it goes. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's very exciting.
Man.
Yeah.
John, we have something else in common. We're both going to be blackballed by certain dioceses.
Yeah, the one I live in. Great.
We did it.
Guess that sponsorship goodbye. No, I have literally just signed on a conference for them, so I don't know. They don't seem to care.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Father Anthony's proud of you because you did all the right things. I'm proud of you because you're using liturgical abuse to build your platform, and I just love that so much.
It's so funny. It's so funny you say that because
marketing. You've done it so well.
No, it's so funny you say that because if you knew anything about who I am and what I do, you would know that that's not the demographic I'm going after at all. So if anything, it's hurt my brand, to be completely honest. Which is hopefully I'm showing that I don't care about that, which is why I'm posting it anyway. Like, who you want these rad trads are coming into my Fortnite streams and being like, hey, bro, can I donate $100? No, they're like, why is this kid playing a child's game?
So what John told me in response to what I said, he looked us in the eyes and he told me if you knew me at all. And I just want to point out that I know John perfectly well, and I got exactly the response I wanted. Dang it! You fell right into the trap. It was great. It was great. So what did we learn here? We learned, first and foremost, that Taylor loves strange things at Mass. Yes. We learned, secondly, that Father Anthony is really good at lying in order to rile John up. And we learned that John is the best person among us, which wasn't a surprise.
Yeah, that's fair. It's totally fair.
John, we're all very proud of you for different reasons. But guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about priests and their training and if it works. So don't go anywhere.
Okay, now you have to put your clerics on.
I didn't bring clerics to Texas. That's ridiculous.
You know I'm teasing you.
I know. That's totally fine. It was a great dig, though.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Be a Heart. They designed some of the greatest Catholic gifts in all of the Catholic internet and Catholic land. They sent me this St. Joseph doll, which I absolutely love. My kids like to come and play in the studio, and they found this the other day, and they thought it was for them, and they wanted to take it, and ultimately it will be theirs in a couple of weeks whenever we're done promoting this specific thing. But they are chomping at the bit to hang out with this and add this to their collection. They have a 6-foot Jesus over there. They're looking to, I think it's going to be really funny having this wonderful St. Joseph next to a 6-foot Jesus. But as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, if not, I'll explain it to you. It's got the L for how big of a loser that Satan is, because, St. Joseph is the crusher of demons, the terror of demons. He's got his saw, and in his backpack on the back, he's got a nice little prayer. So I actually go to a parish called St. Joseph's, and I'm really happy to have this. So what you guys need to do for a gift like this, there's stuff for kids, there's stuff for adults, everywhere in between. So wonderful Catholic things to have around your house for gifts for other people. Beaheart.com, beaheart.com. Visit their summer shop, sign up for their email list, and you will get 10% off your first order store-wide. Beaheart.com.
I am still Taylor. That is still Father Anthony. This is still Jonathan Lene. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll. That's Jonathan Lene, bearded Blevins. And this is Father Anthony Sciarappa. So I mentioned it on last week's show, slash 3.5 hours ago show, that I was at a conference with Bishop Toops. And one of the big things that the diocese did very well was there was like a thread of vocation awareness, primarily for the priesthood, but vocation awareness throughout the entire conference. I was the MC. They had me mention it a few times. They either had all of their seminarians at the conference, and the 2 that they didn't, they had to submit videos to like be a part of the conference.
Wow.
Like, hey, you know, one guy was in Rome, the other guy was in another country, but they were both like, you know, so they'd come on, and I'd throw to the video, and they'd be like, hey, this is so and so. I'm studying in Rome. I want to give a shout out to my parish, and the parish went wild. You know, like all this stuff, right? Bishop talked about it. They had me talk about it. The seminarians talked about it, and one of the seminarians who I actually met about 9 months ago, I met him as a seminarian. No, I'm sorry. I met him as a transitional deacon, but he had been ordained a transitional deacon in Chicago, where John is, right? And Bishop Toops has a very good reputation. Very, very good reputation. And I forget who it was. I don't think it was the rector of the seminary, but it was somebody involved in the seminary in Chicago. That person moved to the Diocese of Beaumont. So because of Bishop Toops and how great he is, and this guy essentially wanting to follow this other guy as well, he got permission to leave the Diocese of Beaumont, the Diocese of Chicago, and become a transitional deacon. He was weeks away from becoming a priest. And then so it elongated the process just a little bit, but he was able to come to the Diocese of Beaumont. He's a transitional deacon now, and he'll be ordained a priest in a couple of months for the Diocese of Beaumont.
I cannot believe they let him do that.
Right.
Same.
I literally can't believe it.
Right.
Same.
It's crazy, right? And I couldn't believe he did it, right? Like
Yeah.
he was telling me the story. I was like, I've never heard this before. This is new, but it's really cool. And you can tell the dude's on fire. Like he's going to be a phenomenal priest. Like he's like cream of the crop kind of guy. And so he had a pretty prominent role. He was like essentially like the like I was the MC of the conference. He was like the mass MC. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, the master ceremonies for the masses and everything. And he got to speak at, like, he was the guy that did the introduction to like adoration and confession, all this. It's like, he's a superstar, right? And so because seminary was a huge like part of this conference that I was a part of, and they were talking to these guys like, oh, you're in year 6, you're in year 7. This guy was in year 8, right? And I was thinking, I had this thought. Immediately, my first thought was, seminary is way too long. It's way too long. Like the jobs that I can train people for, you can become a heart surgeon faster than that. Like you can, like, it's right around the same time, but like the hardest jobs in the world, like the most technical jobs in the world, you know, rocket scientists, less than that, or right around that, right? You know, bachelor's degree, less than that. Bachelor's degree plus a master's degree, 6 years. You become a doctor pretty quickly. And I was like, I had these two thoughts immediately. Seminary is way too long, and yet in so many cases it wasn't enough. So I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with those thoughts.
Taylor, in many ways, they are spiritual heart surgeons.
Oh.
You know me too well. You knew that was going to deflate me.
Yes, I did.
What do you think, Tony? Was your seminary too long, too short, or just right?
You know, okay, so for me it was just right. It's hard to tell. It's one of those things like you can't it's really difficult because like when you're trained to be a doctor, you start to do doctory things, right? You start to be a nurse, you do rounds, you do all these things. You're basically being a doctor beforehand. You're not a priest until you're a priest. And even though I gave it my all in seminary, as far as like my own formation, trying to figure out my own stuff, work on that, and try to learn as much as I could, all that. And then I had to start off day one what it actually meant to be a priest. I tell people it's like this. Okay, you spend 8 years talking about this pool of water, and they tell you about the temperature of the water and how the water moves, and this is what wetness is like. And okay, so I know everything about this pool.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, just deal with it. I know everything about this pool, but none of it matters once you jump in because it's an entirely different experience.
You don't know how to swim.
Yeah. No, I was taught the motions. Like, this is what you do to swim or whatever. Right. Just like this. If you're watching the video, this is how you swim.
Yep.
And so, but it's almost like all that was, everything they taught me was correct, but in a certain sense, it didn't matter as much because I have to swim in water. It's totally different. So that's kind of what it is. So what seminary should do is it should make you very aware of your strengths and especially your weaknesses, so that you don't take any of your own hurts.
I can
and
do
hurt
that in
someone
an
else.
hour.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people can't. Certain liturgical and theological training, like that's all good, but and important, but nothing can prepare you to actually be a priest. Like my idea of priesthood has changed radically over 6 years. It just, I don't know. I don't think there's a way to fix that. So I don't know.
How long did it take you? 8?
I was in the seminary for 8 years. Yeah.
And what's the fastest? If somebody has let's say somebody wants to join, they're 23, they have a bachelor's degree, but it's not in philosophy, it's just in business. What's the fast track?
Depending on the diocese, the fastest I've ever heard about is 6 years.
I think it could be 4. I think like depending on the age and stuff, like I think because a lot of there's a guy by us recently, I won't use names, who made this huge post and he literally goes, he's been ordained for 6 years. After 6 years of ordination and a 6-month discernment to discern my vocation, bro, you can't rediscern your vocation. I don't get to rediscern my marriage. Okay, like I'm in. He goes, and even though I find celibacy to be incomprehensible, I'm going to be assigned to this parish. And then he's coming back. Like, what? Buddy, it's not a secret. that's actually like one of the most well-known parts of becoming a Catholic priest. And so I don't think, like, I do think that maybe for situations like that, you need 6 to 8 years to, if they're young, maybe during the process, so they can understand what they're saying yes to. A lot of people's brains aren't fully developed to like 24 or whatever. And when they're 19 and they're already 20 and they're already a quarter of the way through seminary, who knows? But I do think that a 25-year-old guy who knows what he wants and knows the Lord's calling him to it can be trained in 4 years.
Here's where I kind of landed, right?
Okay.
I was thinking and it's hard to do this, but you and I, Father Anthony, have talked about this before, about how it frustrated me learning about your seminary experience and others, that like it was in our conversation about social media and becoming a priest, and social media in the seminary, right? And I learned in that I was already angry, and then I learned in that conversation that there isn't a ton of one-on-one time in the seminary. There's like your spiritual direction or whatever, but not like one-on-one mentorship, one-on-one training, which like in every other job. So like I worked in the ministry world, but not as a priest, obviously. So I went to college for 4 years. I ended up doing 1 year of grad school, but I dropped out after that. So I did 5 years of prep, and I was working full-time in ministry within a year of my first year of undergrad, right? And I was able to do pretty good ministry. Like, I'm better now, but it's not like I didn't know what I was doing, right? I was able to swim, and I didn't look stupid like you did earlier. But because yours is a lot of practical training, and I was getting one-on-one mentorship from people in ministry who could come up and say like, hey, you did this, it could have been better, try this. And I was able to watch them and kind of learn from them and that sort of thing. So I think good people who have good hearts, I think it can be shorter.
Sure.
Right? But I think in order to do that, there needs to be one-on-one mentorship and somebody who knows the heart and the mind of that person along the way, which it could be shorter, right? I think the 8 years is a huge detriment to vocations. Now I get that that's how it's been for a long time, but we used to have more vocations. Obviously, there's more factors than just that, right? But I do think it is a factor of like, I can become a professional banker in 4 years, or I can be a priest and make no money in 8. But then also, like, I have experienced a lot of priests, and we've talked about a lot of them today, that are not formed, that have been priests for years and years and years, that were not formed enough, right? Mm-hmm. So I think my proposal is shorter seminary, and I know I even saying this out loud, I know how much pushback there would be from current priests, because every time I hear that they have to go to a convocation or they have to go to some training, whatever, they hate it and try everything to get out of it, right? But I think if the culture was less seminary and more ongoing formation, one-on-one mentorship, more classes, more
longer associate pastorships.
Yeah. I think there's another solution. I don't think I have it, but it just it hit me like a ton of bricks that these two things are true at the same time. That it's way too long, and yet for certain people, it's not enough. But for other people, I think it was. Go ahead. I have more thoughts, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, so it very much depends on the guy. And I thought about this a lot because the reason why we have the seminary system the way we do is because of the Council of Trent. Before, it used to be very much a mentorship sort of deal. You want to be a priest, so you would go to your local parish, and that priest would or would not train you. The problem was there wasn't enough education for these guys, so they weren't prepared in that way, even if they were pastoral. Now it's kind of the opposite. There's a lot more academic, a lot less pastoral sort of thing. But when the bottom line, I think, and this is the problem that we have, good priests train good priests. So I am most indebted, not from all the classes, even though I liked a lot of the classes, a lot of teachers were good. The most important part of my formation was working with good priests. The ones who I had for spiritual direction or formation advising, the ones who I saw at the early morning holy hours when they didn't have to be. Like, those guys made me a better priest, right? And the problem is it can be difficult to find priests who are both good priests and good mentors. Because a lot of the difficulty is, like, they'll send guys for summer assignments to people who they think are successful priests for whatever reason, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good mentor or have even time. Or, like, we're just in a very difficult situation right now. We did have 3 priests at my parish. One of the other parochial vicars is now the pastor of 2 other churches now. We just don't have the guys to along mentorship, right? Except I've been doing this for 6 years, so either I'm not good enough to be a pastor, or anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to think about that. But I think you're right. For some guys, it could be 4 years. There's a priest, a good buddy of mine, Father Matt, who was a professor in college. Late vocation. Like, give that guy 4 years. He knows the faith. He knows everything. He's incredibly mature. He's great.
What's the ordained version of Santo Subito?
Yeah, exactly.
Say it now.
Yeah. So it's very tricky. It is. It's all tricky. And I don't disagree with anything you guys have said, but I also don't know if there's a one-size-fits-all thing.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
What about hiring CEOs to run parishes and letting the priests do what they're trained to do pastorally?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
Because the priest is responsible for the parish. Now, I think, like, a priest should have a good business manager, right? And it's important for like I don't know a lot about spreadsheets. I can hire someone to do that, but I cannot give them the responsibility of that. I still have to hold the responsibility. I think that's the big difference, because the parish as pastor, it is your responsibility. So you can't just let someone else run the parish. You can give them work to do, and they can aid you in that. But I think that's because I'm not just a sacramental machine, or even a pastoral machine, or even a pastoral machine. Like, this is part of the theology of the church, is that leadership flows from ordination. So I'm not completely disagreeing with you, but there's an idea that we can just have people take over all the responsibilities in the church, and they can't. The priest has to be responsible.
So what about a COO? That the priest works hand in hand with.
I don't know. Okay, something like that would be fine, right?
Like operations,
yes,
then the priest can be the good leader and everything.
Right,
but they working together. I think we need more of those in the church.
Sure, I absolutely agree with that.
I think y'all are agreeing. The COO of a church is called a business manager.
Yeah.
But they don't ever do that.
But the problem is sometimes parishes don't have money for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or a lot of times people hire a parish will hire a business manager, but it really isn't a business manager. It's just somebody who's marking the books.
Yeah.
That's the difference between an accountant and a business manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
But yes, in general, I agree with you.
So you started to answer it, but I have one last question on this. Because one of the crazy things that I realized, and it was actually after becoming friends with you, and this realization that I had of priests have always been older than me. That was one. And we're months away from being the same, the same age. We were born in the same year. But then 2, I had that revelation that we were, when I just kind of when we first met, that we were the same age. It's as a priest of my age, I've never really been friends with a priest. This is cool. And then it was years later, a year or 2 ago, where you and I were having a conversation, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was like a ministry, not necessarily pastoral, but like a ministerial thing, and it just wasn't clicking for you. And I was like, this is weird. It was a weird feeling for me that I was like, why does this not instantly make sense for you? Because I was like, oh, he's been in ministry for as long as I have. And then I was like, I've been in professional ministry for 12 years. Father Anthony's been doing it for 6.
Yeah.
No, you're way more formed than I am because you were in seminary for God knows how long. But it was this weird thing for me, right? So and I've thought about that a lot since then, right? But since that happened, and it came back when I was thinking about this whole seminary formation thing, because one of the things that you've taught me a lot about the seminary formation is that there's not a lot of ministerial training, right? And so, I'm going to ask John, and then I'll ask Father Anthony, and I'll see if I can come up with an answer. But John, in your formation, because you've been very successful in ministry too, like you've done great things. Like, what do you think in your formation, whether it was before you started ministry or something early in ministry, whatever? What do you think is the most helpful thing for your formation to become like the minister that you have been for years?
It's been the people in mentorship. It's been my first pastor, who's now the bishop in Duluth, who is a very good friend of mine and taught me literally everything I was bad at. He made me either great at or decent enough at to do. And he did that in a very loving way, but a very firm way, where it was just an expectation that he had for me. And he said, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And then you're going to continue doing it without me having to remind you. But it was much more loving than how I made it sound. And then Joel Stepanek, he was my first boss at that same parish. And he is a great leader and led by example and walked me through different scenarios. And I mean, every scenario, an unwanted pregnancy with a teen. What do you do with that? Like if the teen comes to you and shares that with you, how do you counsel them through it? Suicidal teenager, like things that like situations you can't teach in a classroom, but I was with him and he walked me through those. And I never knew it was happening at the time. But then as I was growing in ministry and doing ministry, I remembered how he handled those things and then took the things that I learned, used them, and then used my own gifts that God gave me as well to have that happen. So for me, it's all been the leaders and mentors in my life, which is ultimately the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So that's probably going to be my answer, but I'll change it up to make it more interesting.
I was trying to prove that point.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. So, okay, a little bit of a twist to that is, and I think you probably would say this too, is the people who've ministered to me. Mm-hmm. That's how I learned how to minister to others in a big way. So going through that formation. And the biggest lesson from that for me is learning not to panic about where I was. It's like, oh, you are in a bad place right now. That's okay. Like just being at peace with wherever you are. That's the only way you can grow. It's like, oh, you're not good at this thing. Okay, let's not freak out. You're not good at this thing. Now it's time to get better at this thing. And just like that whole attitude has been huge for my formation. But yeah, absolutely. It's the people who helped me through it all.
Yeah. For me, it was, I learned a lot by watching other people, like by seeing not just the content, but the method of how people teach. So a lot of like my youth ministers, speakers at student conferences, and then like my grad school professor, I talked about him on last week's show. A lot of my grad school professors, like how they taught, I was not just learning what they were teaching me, but I was watching how they taught it and learning because they were teaching it well, right? So I learned a lot from example. But then like my first year in ministry, similar to what John was saying, is like I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I was trained in how to do stuff, but like being the person where like all the questions stopped, like obviously there's a pastor there, but he wasn't super involved. So it was like really the buck kind of stopped with me for most things. And I didn't know how to handle that because I was a 22-year-old kid running a youth ministry, running a youth program. But there was a guy in town who was a former youth minister, and we met at we met when I needed him, when I had specific questions. But we had a standing meeting once a month where for a while he bought me Mexican food, and then I started buying him Mexican food because it was so valuable to me to have these once a month meetings. And he mentored me and he helped me through all the crap. So that was one I kind of figured just from talking to John specifically about it. I wasn't as sure for you. Yeah. But that a lot of lay people trained in ministry, it is so much practical training, so much practical training. And there's less of that with seminary stuff. And like what you were saying, like it is harder, right? I do think it is harder. And I get that because it's a different type of ministry and it's harder to do. But I've been thinking a lot about doctors. I brought them up earlier, right? About how they do all their schooling and then they go do their rotations. Yeah. And those rotations are at specific hospitals led by specific doctors who are good at training and helping people who maybe make mistakes and that sort of thing and helping them on. Scrubs is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I just want to make a Catholic Scrubs is essentially what I'm saying. Yeah. And I want to be the mean boss.
Obviously.
But like, I think like this whole like mentorship thing that I'm talking about, I think if there are good priests that in the diocese that could be like this mentorship kind of thing. Maybe they're not the hugest parish and they're not run super, but like doctors who are running rounds don't have the same responsibilities as a guy who's not running rounds, right? So I like that's the biggest like quote unquote like semi-reasonable solution. It's very different than what we're doing now, but it's the only semi-reasonable conclusion that I could come to that kind of matches all these things that have been floating around in my head. So it was good to talk to y'all about it and kind of flesh it out a little bit more.
Yeah, well done.
My good and faithful servant. All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I mentioned a few months ago that Forte Catholic is growing. That's a great thing. Our ministry is growing. The things that we are doing is growing. So I needed some help. So I hired a young man who had been contracting with me to start working part-time. And I asked you guys to help and to donate. If you're already a donor, to increase your donation a little bit. If you've not yet been a donor, to start donating. And a lot of you have. We needed to raise about $1,250, $1,500 a month for him. And we're about at $1,000 a month. So thank you guys. A ton of you guys came through. We're still a little bit short. So if you want to support the ministry that we are doing here and help us as we continue to grow, if you've ever enjoyed the show, if you enjoyed seeing me speak or lead worship at an event, if you enjoyed any of the podcasts that we produce, that's really what he is helping to do. You can do so by giving a one-time or a monthly donation at fortecatholic.com/donate. We are a nonprofit, so it counts for, it's tax deductible. It's also kind of like a tithing thing, so we could really use your support. fortecatholic.com/donate to donate today. You guys rock. Thank you to all those who are our new donors over the last few months. And of course, thank you to our donors who have been supporting us for years. You guys rock. Couldn't do it without you. Enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Jon, and these are two of my best friends. So John is a huge sports fan. I'm a huge sports fan. This is technically John and I's episode. You just got to hear.
Oh, yeah. I'm totally cool with that. Yeah.
Welcome.
You guys have fun.
So I saved a sports topic for John, but you're not the biggest sports fan in the world.
No.
But this story is about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I am aware of them.
Yes, that's where you live.
I see their jerseys on Sundays very often, yes.
In mass.
In mass, absolutely.
In mass and NMASSE.
Yes. Yes.
M-A-S-S.
In mass.
Yes, very good. It was a very simple, stupid joke, but I wanted to make sure I pointed it out.
Good.
So, John, no, not John, Father Anthony. What is the name of the coach who has been the coach for them for decades?
Is it decades now?
Yeah, I think it's close to 20 years.
Is it really? That's crazy. Because anyway, it's Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin, yes. John, you knew that, but did you happen to see, John, the video? They recently did a podcast with Mike Tomlin and Ryan Clark. Did you see that podcast at all?
I did not see the podcast. I did hear about it though, but I have not seen it.
So I did not watch the whole thing, but I watched this minute-long clip that ESPN shared on Instagram, right? So it's the little 60-second clip. 60 seconds, and I was tearing up by the end of the first time I saw it. Like, which is funny because we recorded 3.5 hours ago, and I was tearing up at the end of our last show, too.
You're just emotional lately.
Dude, it's been, ever since that senior class started graduating in that track season, I've been crying a lot. I watched Obi-Wan Kenobi. I cried like 8 times during the finale. What's wrong with me? Anyway, so Mike Tomlin, this great coach, he's literally never had a losing season ever. Never had a losing season with the Steelers I think it's 18, 19 years. It's somewhere around there, right? Incredible like leadership. Even like the only like quote unquote knock on him is he's not like the best game manager, the best he's not the best offensive coordinator, he's not the best defensive coordinator, but the best pro for him is that he's a leader of men. Like that's been the big thing that holds him together. What do you know about Mike do you like him, John?
Yeah, he's great. I don't know how you couldn't. He's a player's coach, and there's a lot of ways to be a player's coach. To give an example, someone who might not know, Bill Belichick is not a player's coach. He's not friends with his players. Now, maybe when they're like veterans like Tom was, he gets to be more playful, but he berates his best players, right? That is not Mike Tomlin. That is not Dan Campbell from the Lions. They're both players coaches, but they're different coaches because Mike Tomlin is a little quieter, whereas Dan Campbell's like that crazy motivational bite kneecaps guy, but they're both players coaches where the players really want to play for him and he can motivate them. And he does it by kind of just being who he is, which is, I think, one of the rarest best types of leaders you can be. I'm a big fan of Mike Tomlin.
Of course, John brought the losing Detroit Lions into this. As many winning seasons, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. In that same amount of time, the Lions have not had a winning season.
Yes, they have had multiple. In fact, we just tied the Steelers. we just tied the Steelers actually this past season.
In points?
Yeah.
I was like, in what? It's definitely not history. You can be part of this. You don't have to sit completely away from your microphone. I was just kidding.
The Lions are bad. as we all know.
Okay.
About sports.
Here's what I want to talk about. So Ryan Clark it was on the podcast with Mike Tomlin. Ryan's on it more often. This was Mike was the guest. Mike Tomlin was the guest. And for those that don't know, Ryan Clark was one of their big. They have been a defensive team for years and years and years. They had Big Ben for a long time, and they had a pretty powerful offense. But even when the offense was good, they were always like hard nosed, like blue collar Pittsburgh feel. And Ryan Clark was their. They've had Troy Polamalu, they've had Harrison, they've had all these like big defensive guys, and Ryan Clark was their defensive leader for a good 4 or 5 years. And they go and play a game in Denver, which is their stadium. I forget if it's the football stadium or the baseball stadium. One of them is called Mile High Stadium.
That's the football.
It's football. Okay.
Yep.
So it's the elevation so high that like professional athletes struggle when they go play in Denver, or they go play in Mexico City, anywhere where it's super elevated. Like where we are now is like 11 feet above sea level, and that's a mile above sea level. It's a huge deal. So in that game, Ryan falls over, and they find out because he's playing there that he has sickle cell, and he has to sit out for forever. He gets all this treatment and all this stuff, right? He comes back years later, and they're finally, he's able to play. The doctors come through, all this stuff, right? Years later, he's still on the Steelers. They're going back to play a game in Denver at Mile High Stadium, and but he knows that this is where he hadn't played there since he fell over and like almost died, right? And so he's telling this story. He's recounting the story as he's talking to Mike Tomlin on this podcast, and he's saying all the doctors had cleared him to play. The trainers had cleared him to play. Everybody said that Ryan could play, and he walks in with all the doctors to Mike Tomlin's office with a 30-minute prepared speech for these. These are all the reasons that I should play. I got goosebumps. 5 minutes in, Mike Tomlin stops him, and he says, "You're not playing." And Ryan was like, what? I want to play. And Mike said, if you were my son, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Like, you wouldn't have gotten 5 minutes in, right? But he was trying to be respectful of him as a grown man, let him say his piece. But he's like, the answer is no.
Yeah.
The answer is no, because he's like, and Mike even starts saying, like, first of all, that's all he needed to say. If you're my son, we weren't even having this conversation. You're not playing.
Yeah.
But then he is like, essentially what he said was like, if I don't show that I care for these people that I'm telling you to buy in and care for, then I lose all credibility, right? I got goosebumps talking about it. I cried the first time that I watched it. It was just such a phenomenal moment of leadership, because his job is to win football games, and he told his best defensive player, you're not playing, for his good. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It's what you want. I think it's really hard to do. It's hard because you're gonna get, if he loses 3 straight seasons, he's getting fired.
Yeah.
And he might be the one guy in the NFL you think is unfireable, but I mean, 3 straight seasons, if he loses the next 3, he could get fired. He doesn't care. He's a leader of men, and that's what he wants to be, and that's what he wants to do. And he knows that these guys, they're an injury away from never working again in what they've done their whole lives. And he knows that their life is still going to go on, and believes in them. And I think that's exactly how he gets players to play for him. I think it's awesome. He's unreal.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, you can get so wrapped up in your passions in life. Like, we all have various passions. Like, one of yours is evangelization, both of you guys, and there's little side projects along that, but you can get so tunnel visioned that you forget that even though this thing is a passion of yours, it's not your life, right? It's a part of your life, an important part of your life, but it's not your life. And to have the clear-headedness to see that, like, Mike Tomlin, this guy, like, they love football. Football is definitely one of their passions, maybe their biggest passion in a certain sense, but it's not worth your life. And to be able to see that and step back from that, and to let, like, the pride and the ego go, because there's genuine care and respect and love in that relationship, that can be a rare quality, because we can get so focused on the one thing we've been trying to get good at our entire lives. that we hold on to it even tighter than we would hold on to our own lives.
Yeah, it's the
One thing I think.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just
One
the
thing I think is really cool is, oh my gosh, look at this. I knew it was going to happen. You always tell me to be aggressive. One of the things I think is just amazing is also what Ryan Clark tried to do. Like that is what everyone in that locker room, what Mike did, it's gonna inspire them a ton. But so is what Ryan did, trying to get back to play at one of the scariest places he's ever played.
Yeah.
I think that does a whole bunch for that locker room too. So the whole story is just making me hate the Steelers less.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that angle. I didn't, and here's why. It's because I was the athlete for so long, but now I completely think like a coach, right? Because I've been coaching and I care about these kids, and like my care for them goes further than their success, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we have to gauge with them. Is like, it is part of my job. Sure, success on the track is cool for all of us, right? But one of my primary jobs with them is to teach them how to work hard and how to push through pain, right? But a big part of that is teaching them how to know the difference between pain and injury, right?
Yep.
The difference between pain and like risking future real injury, right? And so here in this, and like, because like ultimately it's like I've had to do the same thing. The doctors are saying some things, and like sometimes I've sided with the doctors, and there's other times where I've been like, we're gonna sit you out another week, or it's the state meet, and it's like, it might be time to step up and do it, you know. So we've had to like make those decisions both ways, and it just really hit me, just like how much because like I'm doing it at a local Catholic school where like I care about these kids, and I'm not doing it for the money, I promise. But like Mike, this is a professional scenario, right? Where professionally it made the most sense for him to play Ryan, especially when the doctors are saying he could wash his hands of it and say the doctor said he was fine. Yep. But the last thing he said was like, you know, I have to go to sleep at night. I have to live with it. He's like, if something would have happened, it's on me, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought it was phenomenal. So speaking of leadership, and you mentioned humility and, you know, the lack of pride. Our last Pope showed that in a very tremendous way. He said, my time is done, except I'm not dead. But I would like to resign from the papacy.
That's exactly what he said too.
Yeah.
Word for word.
Word
As
for
you
word.
can see,
It was in
I
Latin.
am not dead.
It was in Latin, so people don't know that. Taylor translated for us, so thank you. Yeah.
I do think he may have used the word abdicated.
Yeah.
He may have used that word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
He
used
may
to do
not
those
have though. We may have
exercises.
just put that. We just may have said that.
Oh, you're okay. So, a lot of people have speculated, even as recently as like a week or two ago. It became like a real news story, like a CNN, Fox, you know, all those things, where a lot of people thought the Pope was going to resign. And anytime it's a real news story, I think it's fake.
Yeah.
But then I started hearing some of the facts about what's going on. Have y'all heard anything about like Pope Francis possibly resigning?
No.
Yeah, just what, do you mean?
What you mentioned. Yeah. as far
Yeah,
as
just what
news.
you've mentioned, and obviously, like I've heard from news sources that he's sick and
Yeah, he's
not
definitely
well.
very.
Yeah.
He's having a
he's
tough
got
time.
like, you know, a quarter of a lung or something.
He can't
like,
walk
you know,
anymore. Yeah, it's tough.
there's been all these things kind of building up of like I think he said pretty early in his papacy that he doesn't think that he's going to die in his papacy, and so it's kind of always been in the back of his mind. He really liked what Pope Benedict did whenever he resigned, like, so it's been kind of in the back of his mind, in the back of my mind, because we heard those things. But then recently, I heard that like from within church circles, not from, you know, the secular news sources or whatever, but that typically Rome shuts down for like a month or two in like July, August, because it's so hot and humid, and I'm just like, it's nothing compared to Texas, and we still work, but whatever, lazy Italians. But Pope Francis has called all of the voting cardinals, and they are meeting. This is a real thing. It's on the calendar. It's on the books. They are meeting in late August. These dudes are old, right? They're meeting in late August. This is the first time they've all met together since they elected Pope Francis. Now, there tend to be times where they like to call all the cardinals together to be together in like brotherhood, but because of COVID, they haven't done that, right? So literally the last time that they were in the same room together, and a lot of them weren't even cardinals at the time. Some of them don't even know each other. They've never met because they're from across the world. The next time that they will meet is in late August in Rome. And there is one place that Pope Francis is scheduled to celebrate Mass where they're meeting. And it is at the tomb of the last Pope, not Benedict, he's still alive. Yeah. But the last Pope, was it 500-something years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Where the last Pope who resigned the papacy before Benedict. He's celebrating Mass at his tomb. So either Pope Francis is resigning in August and he's called all the cardinals together for a conclave, a surprise conclave, or this is the greatest troll in human history.
Father Anthony, you have to know more. You like what's the other significance of that church?
You know what? That's the one thing that I do not keep up with church politics stuff.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I know the inside scoop. It's a whole lifestyle. You can get really into it, and just like any other thing you can get into, but it's just not a thing. I mean, I know the name of my bishop, and that's about it as far as I know by hierarchy. You know,
I know John's now.
yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. But really, so I'm not sure. Now, part of my brain when I hear you say that, like it could be, just it's been since COVID. They haven't had a chance to meet together. Yeah. And Pope Francis is getting older, so he wants to give them a chance to meet together because that's going to be important in the future. It could be as simple as that, right? That church might have, or that tomb may have a different kind of significance. It could be whatever. But I mean, it could be him saying goodbye. Who knows? I really don't know. It's not like a thing I can do anything about. So,
I have no thoughts other than that. If it happens, it'll be funny. Like it'll be a little bit funny if like Megyn Kelly got it right.
Yes, correct. That
John,
would be funny.
You're wrong, and I thought I knew you well. I thought I proved that earlier.
Oh.
But I thought you had been around me long enough to understand comedy. It will not be funny if he resigns.
Okay, why?
It will be a huge story. If he does all of this and leaves all these breadcrumbs and does not resign after calling all these old dudes from across the world to the hottest time in August, and they're going to plan like it's for the conclave. They're going to pack for weeks. They're going to cancel their schedules. If he doesn't resign, that's funny.
Good point.
I think both can be funny.
Okay, John, that's fine for you. I'm just telling you you're wrong.
I'm a moral relativist, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And that's how we're going to end today's show. John, thanks for not being here. I wish you were here going on this retreat with us. I really do.
It would have been fun. I really do, too. I really would like to do that. You sold me the second you told me about it. I'll be praying for you guys. We celebrate my mom's birthday. I will. But yeah, make sure you just pray for me at least one time and during one of those intercessions, and not a weird one. From the time that John said he would be here and then canceled
for his mother. Well, yeah, very good. All right, Father Anthony, you're stuck with me for the next week. John, you are free. You get to go. Guys, thanks for watching and listening to today. I'll be back next week. See ya.
Taylor, I can't believe I fell into your trap. You
so
rat.
Funny. If you really knew me, I was like, oh, buddy. Thank y'all for watching and listening today. We hope that you enjoyed it. The three of us had an absolute blast together. Our next episode is the final episode where Father Anthony is here with me. We recorded that one after we went on the retreat and just kind of did a recap of how much fun we had and kind of the insights that we got in our time of prayer, our time of fellowship, and all those sorts of things. So hit subscribe so you get that whenever it hits your feed, and we'll see you soon. Love ya.